our activity last month. We've been very fortunate as because of our upgrade to our social media accounts and our websites. The BCCPB has been able to where we have a 15% increase in our media activity. This has enabled us to increase our contacts for potential members and possible new members, and for our business and new businesses for the city of Odessa as well. We were able to we were in the process of meeting with uh, the young lady with the in-home care. We met with her on 2 occasions to discuss possible locations here in Odessa that she wants a building for her business, and she's in the process of looking for that. So we were able to assist her with that. We were contacted by 2 potential new business owners that has relocated here from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're interested in starting a business here in Odessa, and they wanted information, and they contacted the chamber, and we were able to get them information. One gentleman is interested in opening a restaurant, and then the other wanted to do a food truck service. We recommended that they go through the SBDC, there at UTPB, and Mr. Patton to kind of hone their skills. We asked them had they gone through any type of these courses, and they had not. So they attended this last one we had. Because of the change in our tax filing deadline, we had scheduled a investor to come and do a seminar and a workshop. And I did ask them, were they interested, or what would it take for them to have an office here local? Because I understand what you're saying, because that's local money going elsewhere. So we did check into that. We are going to take and probably do a day in July, and that's going to incorporate the writing of wills, investment information, different financial advice that young people and some of our seniors didn't have that information. So we were asked to do that. We were able to contact and communicate with over 100 potential members, ex-members, and former members. This has really helped us increase our number. Our membership is up. We're currently right now in the process of promoting our 12th annual golf tournament, and that's going to be here at Sunset. That's going to be July 17th. So we're in the process of promoting that. The Black Chamber, we just finished sponsoring our 3rd workshop with the SBDC with Mr. Patton and UTPB. We had 24 people that attended that course, so the numbers were up. We're seeing an increase in the courses, and they're seeing an increase there with them of, I think Mr. Patton said the numbers has gone from 12% to 20%. So we're seeing results of our activity at advertising our courses and trying to get people involved in attending these workshops and these seminars and using the information that is available to them. Where Mr. Paul Garza and myself are in the process of we're in the process of working at a joint event to work on membership. We're looking at sometime in late July and maybe 1st of August. We're in the process of helping the BCCO promote the upcoming June 19th festival, which is this week. We were able to reach out to over 300 people through emails, through text, through basically call, landline, what we were able to do. So we were trying to help them promote this to make sure that this event is successful for not just the community, but for the city, because you'll have visitors that will be coming to this event. We're in the process of doing our next networking promotional breakfast. This is going to be the end of July. And finally, we are in the early stages of our Ebony Bar Awards, which is one of our biggest events, and we're looking at that in late and mid-November, but we're in the process of starting that now. So we have a lot of other activities in the works that we have. We're trying to get the ones that we're going in with joint ventures to communicate. So to kind of get back with us so that we can put it in writing and let you guys see that these events are going to come about. Any questions that I may be able to answer? Thank you.
Next, the Hispanic Chambers, Paul here. Okay. Someone for Paul.
My name is Serena, and I'm with the Odessa Hispanic Chamber. I am Paul's assistant. He was not able to make it today. But there's nothing new really to report. We're still working with the crane hoisting company. We want to possibly set up a meeting with the ODC to see how we can help him expand his business. We are really focusing on building a solid fundraising base so that we can stand on our own 2 feet and not solely rely on funding from ODC or other sources that we get funding from, if any. As Mr. Chris stated, we have been working with the Black Chamber. We're also working with Odessa Arts, Keep Odessa Beautiful. We have July 31st an event, a color fun run, and it will be at McKinney Park, and we're pairing up with Odessa Arts and Keep Odessa Beautiful. That's one of our first fundraising events that we have. Then we will have August 7th, our annual golf tournament. And then in September, we have our annual banquet. So those are some of the things that we're kind of focusing on right now. If you have any questions for me.
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Tyler.
Good afternoon. You've got my report in front of you, but let me just go over a couple of highlights, and then I'll take any questions you may have. One of the big highlights is the number of counseling sessions for the month of May. That's 389. That is a 50.7% increase over May 2020, which was actually up over May 2019 as well. So that's 2 consecutive years we've seen growth. This month, substantial growth in that area. Going on down, 354 counseling hours for the month. We had 4 seminars, 73 attendees, 3 new businesses. 2 of those are in Odessa. And again, I can give you the kind of the industry they're in. One was a party supply rental company. Another was a tea franchise. And the third was a safety consultant. So all 3 good, solid business types. Capitalization for the month was a bit over $2 million. Odessa capitalization was $10,800. The new FTEs for the month were 23. The majority of these new FTEs are coming from 2 sources for this month. One's a logistics company that opened up a couple of months ago in March, I believe. The other is another franchise that also opened up a couple of months ago. So it's a nice bump in FTEs there for us. We've got 4 workshops this month. One was Shopify. We've already done that one, had pretty good attendance on that. The second was one on business structure. That's one that was co-sponsored by the Black Chamber. We had 24 attendees. That's a pretty dry subject matter. So I felt 24 was pretty good and substantially greater than that same subject matter done without sponsoring from the Black Chamber. So I think that's indicative of the kind of results we're seeing. We've got financial projections. Coming up, that one will be co-sponsored by the Hispanic Chamber, Odessa Hispanic Chamber. And then we've got a disaster preparedness tips. That one is funded by the CARES Act. So we've got that one coming up later this month. Any questions?
I saw on the website where you're doing that CMMC level training.
Uh-huh.
Do we have a lot of companies out here that do defense contracts?
No, we do not. We're trying to push that. We have the guy, his name escapes me now, but the guy out of Lubbock, who is the new, I say new, he's been there about a year, the new leader of that organization. He's done a couple of workshops for us. They've been fairly well attended. We want to keep pushing that. So I'm going to keep having him on about every 6 months or so to discuss various things about that. I think it's a huge opportunity that not enough companies in this area either know about or are willing to go through the steps to pursue. And we want to, try to show them it's not as difficult as it may seem. So, yeah.
Excellent. I found it interesting just because I think that defense contract industry could be something ODC could wrap our funding around. Definitely goes into diversification out of our oil and gas and would fit into manufacturing, industrial, our typical 4A tax guidelines. So anyway, thank you, Tyler.
You bet. Let me give you a little update on the Small Biz Accelerator. We'll be having our fourth session tomorrow. As I said, we had 30 companies who initially were approved to be in. We've got about 17 that are very active. So we're trying to work on that number a little bit. But so far, the results and the feedback has been very good. They're doing their homework. They're working with each other. A lot of interaction going on. So I think it's been a success thus far. In fact, we have our second mentor event, I believe, Thursday of this week over in Midland. So it's been a good experience, not only for the participants, but for us as well, quite frankly. Okay. Any questions?
One quick question.
Yes,
On
sir.
the project that we had before with the other group from UTPB, we told them this next year we'd circle back around.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd have them contact me or any other board
I certainly will.
members,
Sure.
And we'll take another. We promised them we'd take another look, and we owe them that. So.
Okay. I will do that.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
James, the Motran man.
As a real quick thing, we talked to you last time a little bit about our efforts with Southwest Airlines, and Craig was talking about some of the social media stuff, and my God, we've come a long way since the 1980s. I can report to you that we had about 18.3 or 18,300 views on LinkedIn of that poster thing that we showed you. About 14,300 of those were directly to Southwest Airlines employees. Particularly in the corporate side of things. Facebook was about 25,300 and about 15.6 thousand of those also related back to their employee base. The good news about that was enough people saw it that it spurred on some conversations with us, and they requested some additional information. And that's what's in front of you today. They're looking for projected economic growth for the Permian Basin, Midland, Odessa area in particular. And so I pulled out a little bit of what we've been putting together on that. Just as a note to you on this, the population data, employment, income, GDP for the last 20 years is information that we've collected at Motran from the U.S. Census, the Texas Workforce Commission, and the Federal Reserve. The data going forward from 2050 through 2050, or 2020 to 2050, or projections, that comes from on population, the state demographer, and the rest of it comes from Moody's Analytics. That was a multi-million-dollar contract that TxDOT did with them. I don't have that kind of funding, but we got their data, and so we thought we'd use it. Just as a couple notes to you, if you look at population projections from 2020 to 2050 through the state demographer's office, they're projecting that the population of Midland and Odessa over that next 30 years goes above 1 million people. When we looked at that, I got a little bit nervy about sending that out because even that makes me a little bit uncertain. So what we did was we created an extra column there, and that's us 2020 to 2019 rate by 2050. We just apply that extrapolated rate for the last 19 years over that next 30-year period. So it's a pretty conservative number because you're applying that rate for 20 years over a 30-year period. But you see by that, even looking at that previous rate, you still get to well over 500,000 people here just in Midland and Odessa. You can see some of those other numbers there. I won't go through all of that with you. I just wanted you to kind of be aware of those. I think they're a little bit interesting. Who knows how it'll come out? I'm not the greatest predictor of times, but it was interesting data. And so we wanted to share that with you. I will say this, I plan to be commuting by 2050 because evidently in Glasscock County, the median household income is going to be about 1.5 million, which is higher than Midland and Odessa. So I'm just going to start driving so you'll know that. Finally, the last thing I have for you, in the biennial revenue estimate, the revision that the comptroller did, they predicted an additional $550 million of transportation funding available to the state, thanks to all the additional severance taxes that are being paid in. And so at this point, we've been communicating with the Commission and TxDOT, talking about continuation again of the Permian program. And I say that to you because we'll probably be coming forward to you next month with a resolution asking for you to support that continued funding, asking them to apply some of those severance tax dollars back to our local roads and highways as they have for the last 2 years. And that's my report.
Any questions? Okay. Larry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon. You have in your packet the financial reports for the month of April. I'll just hit a couple of highlights in that and give you an idea where we're at with our investments as well. For the month of April, the total assets increased by $472,926, which resulted in total assets of just a little over $58 million. Total revenues year to date is $5.769 million. Total expenditures year to date are $1,669,000. I mentioned the investment side of things. We did, during the month of April, purchase securities that were issued by Bergen County, New Jersey, par amount of $1 million. That yields 20 basis points. Those are about 16 months to maturity at this point. We also, just this morning, settled on $620,000 of Dallas School GO bonds that have a yield of 15 basis points for a term of 14 months. So as I say, we just settled on those this morning. It's kind of hard to talk about, the basis points as a good yield, but we are trying to maximize what we can given the constraints of the market that we operate in as well. We are still trying to finalize a CD with a local financial institution. That should help us out a lot, but there's been we've had a few issues with that, but we'll get that done here in the next little bit. Would there be any questions on the financial part? If not, I'd like to go on to one other thing, if I may.
Question. So I'm showing a gain and loss investment is a loss of $37,655. Is that just a paper loss, or did we sell an investment and actually?
We have not sold any investments at any kind of loss. Those are basically, as you use the term paper loss, we actually purchased those because the coupons are much higher than what the yield actually is. And so we purchased those, and it just accretes over that period of time.
Okay. So did we purchase those at a premium?
We did purchase, well, yes, they're purchased at a premium at that point because of the.
And they'll settle at par value.
They will settle at par. We have not sold any of them at any kind of loss at all.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, is there one more item?
Yes, sir. We had talked last month about a anticipated cash flow statement, and this is our attempt to try to identify when those expenditures are scheduled to be made on the different grants. You'll see that the date of the grant is shown on the first column on this page, the identification of the entity or recipient of the grant. The total grant amount, we just took all the amounts that had been expended prior to fiscal year 2021 and put those into the next column, followed by expenditures over the next 5 fiscal years as they're currently scheduled. And so you can see that in each of those years, these are the amounts that we anticipate expending on the previously approved grants. And so as you go down through there, it gives you an opportunity to see what we think we're going to be spending from a cash flow standpoint outside of our normal operating expenses and revenue coming in. But this at least gives us an opportunity to understand when the grants are going to be paid out and what amount over what period of time. And then we just did a 5-year period and then put the remaining portion into the last column on the page there, showing that it would be beyond that 5-year period that they would be anticipated to be expended. I hope this is helpful to you to understand what we think we're going to be expending. It will be modified as new grants are made and others are paid out and those types of activities, but at least to give you some idea of how we anticipate expending those grant funds. Are there any questions on that I can try to address?
Question, kind of off the wall. This is more of a brainstorm earlier, but I was just curious to see if you'd know. City Council recently approved, are working on approving $95 million in general obligation certificates. Is there any reason why ODC couldn't purchase some of those? They're looking at like a 2.95% yield, and they're AA rated. I haven't compared it to the policy investment policy.
I don't think I would be prepared to make a statement for sure. It certainly is a thought and could be considered in whatever way it would be merited, but I wouldn't have a response to you at this moment.
Just curious.
David, do you have something?
Yeah, I guess just to note that the $5 million for Odessa College is not shown there because you don't have any idea when they're going to complete their project, I guess.
Well, when the building itself will be completed is when the clock starts on that, when it's
Yeah.
to be expended over the 5 years following that
Yeah.
point in time.
So if we guessed it was going to affect maybe fiscal 23, it could impact this analysis in 3 years, maybe something like that. Huh? Yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. It certainly could, and those kinds of pieces of information will go toward refining and revising this as it goes
Yeah.
forward, and any other grants that may be made during that time. But your point is very well taken. Yes, sir.
How will you share this report? Will this be something we'll see on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, or what do you, because I think it's a very good report.
We'd be happy to give it to you at any point you'd like to. I'm not sure that monthly would be much difference between month to month. But quarterly, semi-annual, whatever it might be worthwhile, we'd be happy to provide it at any time.
Any other questions? I like the report though, for sure. Let's figure out how quickly it changes, but probably quarterly, at least, and semi-annually.
Yes, sir.
Might be better, but we'll kind of look at it and see. But
Okay.
very good.
Thank you very much.
Cindy.
Good afternoon, Board. This agenda item was mentioned at the last meeting when y'all were reviewing some facade and infrastructure grants. And so this is to basically do a budget transfer, taking money out of the business incentives line item and increasing the facade grant line item and the infrastructure grant line item. The first one, facade, by $25,000, and the infrastructure grant by $295,000, which will be a $320,000 reduction to the business incentives line item.
Okay.
And I just need,
You need a
forgot to
motion.
ask, you needed approval on the financials, and you needed approval on this, please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, first we need a motion to approve the financials report given by Larry.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all vote in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then we need a motion to make this transfer
So move.
by David, seconded by Jeff. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Passes.
Thank you.
Now it brings us to a point we've been looking for quite some time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is consider a resolution approving the economic development agreement with Nacero. The resolution is in your packet there that breaks down the basics of the information. The actual contract was in your packet as well. This is exactly to the point that the last motion y'all made to approve the incentive package, which was for the investment and for the job created. This is a 10-year, $2 million a year after performance is verified with the auditors and satisfied to the board. The company is classified as 325199 of the NACE codes, which falls right into the allowable projects under the law. Also, the company has agreed to invest at least somewhat billion dollars in the project in Penwell, and then the job creation is listed there as well in your packet. The first 5 years is based on the capital investment, which we've broken out in attainable categories there for year 1 through 5, and then year 6 through 10 is based on the employment and the payroll. So, I mean, there's really not a lot left to explain in this. We've been talking about it for over a year as far as with the project and the company. Y'all and the council did approve the resolution for the incentive package. This is the formal part to approve the actual agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Move for approval.
Hang on, just a couple questions. So one, in the contract, and maybe I missed it, I went through it a couple times, but I didn't see a clawback provision.
They pay in arrears. We pay in arrears.
Yeah.
So there's,
Well, I mean, let's say 4 years in, 5 years in, I know they've met it for the first 4 years, but they haven't completed the project. Is there anything there that we could recoup anything for not completing the project?
they only get paid for the portions of the project that have been completed.
So in the way the contracts are, they've earned that payment, so there's nothing to claw back.
Okay. Second suggestion, I know the first 5 years are based on capital improvement, and then, it may not be a big deal, never mind, forget that thought. So another suggestion down, sorry, insurance hats on. Under the insurance category 4.2.3, the event the building is damaged by fire, the insured chooses not to reconstruct, ODC shall be entitled to receive funds. In our requirements for property insurance, I would put something in there that ties to an amount of some form, either be full replacement cost of buildings and equipment, some kind of wording in that. Right now, you're pretty vague and pretty open. No offense, I know they wouldn't do this, but we're talking contracts, and Melanie, you'll understand that, you know, if we come in and do $50,000 in business personal property contents to cover office furniture and provide a certificate for that, a certificate's not gonna show how much coverage is there unless we specifically ask for it. So, should we have something in the contract showing how much insurance coverage we want?
I'm not sure I understand why we would. I mean, why would we be dictating that to them? It has no bearing on their ability.
I'm not sure we have an insurable interest.
Well, my only question, I mean, my first question was, why are we requiring them to give us property insurance to begin with? But here it says insurance, we're requiring them to show proof of property insurance, first of all, on builder's risk, and second is after it's constructed. So if we're gonna have it, then we might wanna put some limits in there.
Chris, the language because I've got something flagged here in this section too. The language I'm used to seeing in contracts kind of like this is that the insurance is substantially similar to that used by other similarly situated companies in accordance with the industry standard. Would that kind of language satisfy you, or are you wanting hard limits on how much?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm just, you know, like I said, first of all, I was questioning why we're even requiring them to provide insurance on it to begin with, because I don't think ODC, the city may, but ODC doesn't have an insurable interest.
And they decide to sue everybody whose name's ever been attached with it, they might try to sue us.
Then it would be liability and not property insurance we need. Then ODC just need to list as additional insured.
We wouldn't, I'm pretty sure we'd be dismissed off as a party pretty easily. But that's probably why we just want to make sure that they have insurance in place.
So I would agree with you on that line, that we maybe be listed on the liability policy. The property, again, I agree that with Chris, I don't think we have an insurable interest in the property, but since it was in here, I figured you guys probably saw something that we might want to put some limits. But I would agree more with you, Melanie, in that instead of having proof of property insurance, we have proof of liability insurance. This is just as simple as adding ODC as an additional insured with a waiver of subrogation on their existing contracts, which cost them nothing, and it protects us.
I'm open to whatever the rest of the board thinks is appropriate, but I don't,
Because that would protect us in a lawsuit, the property wouldn't.
I think putting in here that we want their limits to comport with industry standards is really all we need.
But for liability or for property? You're asking for
I would think
property
for all of it.
insurance right now, you know. If you're gonna do
Well,
property, then industry standards is gonna dictate that you're gonna need property limits.
In paragraph 4 of that section, we say that that companies shall also maintain such additional insurance. And this is the language that I have flagged. As may be required in its judgment and experience, et cetera. I think that is the paragraph that basically means you need to have all the insurance you need to have. But I'd like us to
That's awful vague.
I know. I'd like
agree
it
with
to say something that they will maintain such additional insurance as comports with the industry standard, rather than just what in their judgment and experience, because that's,
Most of the MSAs I look at, which is pretty much every day, I mean Chevrons and Texacos and Apaches and everybody's, is that, you know, they want their contractors to list them as additional insured with a waiver of subrogation. Pretty evident. And basically, in the event that something happens, somebody gets sued, and Acero gets sued, and they tie in ODC for whatever reason, and I agree with you, that 9 times out of 10 as just a lender, or even as a grantor, we're gonna get released from it. However, we are gonna spend some money on legal to get to that point. So if their policy lists us as an additional insured, their policy will pay to defend us to settle any lawsuits just as they would Acero. And if we add in a waiver of subrogation, then their insurance company would waive any rights to subrogate or come after us for any partial liability ODC may have.
Would that satisfy your concern?
Absolutely. I think it'd be the simplest and easiest, and it's really not gonna cost Acero anything to add us as an additional
That's-
insured.
yeah.
And it's common, that's industry standard.
Yeah, normally there's not a charge for that,
Yeah, you would agree with that, Tim?
I mean, there's never, I'm fine with the way it's written right now, but if that gets it past the bill, we need to change it, but. the
I would
dis-
just agree with Chris. I don't think ODC has an insurable interest in any of their properties. I don't think we need to be listed on any of the property insurance.
Yeah. And their builder's risk is included in here, so that's already takes care of it once
Yeah.
being constructed.
I think another reason for us to care about them having insurance in place is that if there is a casualty event that interrupts the project, it's in our interest for them to have insurance so that they can repair or replace whatever is needed and continue to build and develop and live up to their end of the contract.
That's a good point.
That's, by my way of thinking, that's why the
From
main
property.
reason we care about the insurance.
Yeah, I think it just adds some stability to the,
I think we just need to
Project.
clean that up a little bit. And,
I-
you know
I
what
have
mean?
flagged that I mean, that I wanted to change a little bit of the language. I don't think that there's a problem with tightening anything in there up at all.
So the property, you're just kind of leaving it wide, and with that example you just gave, I would agree with that. I would just say, you know, full replacement cost of whatever's damaged. You know,
Yeah.
something in that line. And probably, I would probably put in there, and Tim, you may add to this too, probably covered under special form with full replacement cost, because that would take care of that. And that's also reasonable and customary, and it's pretty well industry standard as far as the property goes.
I think whatever's
That's a
the
good point.
industry standard is what's appropriate. And so that's why I wanna reference that in the language, so that it's clearly timed to that. I had do you have any more?
Yeah, I think,
I had a couple of things, and I hope I don't come across as nitpicky. We use the term jobs and FTE somewhat interchangeably in here. What I would suggest is in section 2.2, subparagraph 4, where full-time equivalent job is defined. I would just, in addition to the parentheses around FTE, I would also say or jobs, just so that there's no discrepancy in what we mean. That if we say job, we still mean a job requiring a minimum of 18, 20 hours work per year, et cetera, et cetera.
insurance for full-time equivalent job, FTE, and in parentheses, you want job,
Or, and say, or jobs, so that it, anywhere we see jobs, we know that that's what it means.
oh, okay.
The other option would be to take the word job out everywhere and put in FTE, so that that the defined term is consistent. It's probably easier to just add the word jobs to the defined term though.
Okay.
Y'all are having to listen to contract nerds, so I'm sorry. The next thing is in the insurance paragraph, I would like us to state that we want all of their insurance, that they will have all policies at limits that comport with the industry standard. And then whatever the insurance nerds were talking about, add there too.
I can give them that wording they need off of normal
Good.
MSAs. It'll break down general liability, workers' compensation, whatever else we want to put in there.
Paragraph 4.4, suspension. I would like us to change that to termination. That in the event of a bankruptcy filing or the appointment of a receiver, that we have the right not just to suspend the project, but to terminate it. Because as y'all will recall, during the summit thing, we had to wait for an order from the judge to terminate that contract before we could take those funds out of what was committed and put them back into our budget.
Good point.
So if we put in here that we have the right at our discretion to terminate, I think that's a better trigger for us.
Well, doesn't it say that in that 4.4 where it says ODC under the following circumstances at sole discretion may suspend its obligations under this agreement or may terminate the agreement? So it gives us the option to do that, doesn't it?
I'd rather focus on the I'd like it to be titled termination. I'd like it to be very clear.
Okay.
So that that if a bankruptcy judge is looking at it, we don't have any.
I would agree.
So just changing that title would suffice, and use the same wording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think we'd have to change the title and also change it to sentence 1 of 4.42, which we may terminate, not suspend.
CFO in place.
Do we, when we
Say
do
that,
our.
say that again.
So section 4.4, if we change the title to termination, then at the end of that first line, ODC under the following circumstances at its sole discretion may, and it again says suspends, we need to change that to terminate.
But then it says or may terminate.
It still gives them the
But
option to
we could
suspend.
say may terminate or suspend
Okay.
if we wanna.
Yeah, I think you want both options.
Any others? Issues? Jen, are you making these notes?
I am indeed.
Okay.
We have to communicate with Nacero's attorneys in Houston. The council meeting is tomorrow. In the future, could we get our changes earlier when we distribute the,
I think that's what our intent
Yes.
was, getting them early this
Right.
end, but, yeah,
Yeah,
Let's just
I
get some out
apologize.
and
I
get to 'em.
reviewed it as soon as I was
yeah.
free to do it. And what day did we got it sometime last week, didn't we?
Mhm.
Last Wednesday or so.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't, the changes we're talking about are not
they're not sweet.
earth-shattering, I don't think, but,
Nacero's here, then I probably could.
Just surprised to hear it. It's your document.
I know.
Yeah, it's literally the city's document. They just put in the terms of the commitments.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly
What
could we get
attorney
these
do they
changes and
use?
get them to their attorneys?
I'm not sure.
What firm are y'all using?
We're using our internal attorney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Could I amend my motion to include the changes that we talked about? Go ahead and vote to approve it with those changes, and then, I mean, we take a little bit of risk that they're gonna have some heartburn with it, but I don't, these don't appear to me to be material enough to make a difference.
The ones that I don't understand are the insurance ones, so I'm not sure what you're trying to do with the insurance language and being additional insured, but I'm not an insurance guy either.
Yeah, the waiver of subrogation and additional insured is just a term that almost all contracts going, MSAs are going back and forth, they want that, and it's not a revenue generating endorsement. It's common in all of the contracts. I don't think it basically says that you waive your rights for subrogation, and then also the additional insured is just if something happens, we're additional insured on your policy.
In the event that Nacero is sued for any reason, most attorneys, being good attorneys, are gonna sue everybody and see where the money falls. And so in the event that they sue Nacero and then tie ODC for whatever reason into that lawsuit, your policy will defend the Odessa Development Corporation in addition to Nacero. And in addition to that, just like we're named insured on your policy, in addition to that, they waive the right to subrogate or come back to ODC to collect any monies that are paid out on our behalf for any partial liability that ODC may have. Very, very common terminology in pretty much every insurance contract that I see. Like I said, I seriously doubt your attorneys will have any problem with it. But I would be for approving it with the changes, and then if their attorneys want to come back, we can revisit it at a later date. Because I would imagine council would approve it the same way, and then if it needs to come back after that, it'll come back through us and go back to council.
Might save a step.
I'm all for saving steps,
For what?
for saving the step. I mean, if we don't have to come back and do this, if y'all can approve the terms haven't changed, it's just some words on insurance that are changing at this point. So, like Chris said and David said,
It's just some cleanup type
just some
stuff.
cleanup type of stuff.
I move that we accept it with the changes that we've discussed here.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, who seconded?
David?
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Appreciate y'all's support. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, ODC bylaws, next item. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at those. Need to open that up for discussions. If everybody was okay with it, do we need to make any changes?
I had already submitted my comments.
Excuse me, do what?
I had previously submitted my comments. They were shown in the red line
Okay,
that was
so that's already
circulated for
been
the
taken
last
care of.
meeting. So that's the extent of my comments.
Mr. Boutan?
Yeah, I think they're just gonna be questions. Let me see. I think it's, let me look, see if I can find it here. Okay, we're in section 4.3. Says Downtown Grants Design Review Board. It refers to the Downtown Grants Design Review Board, and then it also refers down here to the Design Review Board, and I think those ought to be consistent, but I'm confused because it has an A section, and then it has another A section, maybe that's supposed to be B, and it says, the Design Review Board is made up of the mayor or designee approved by the city. The Design Review Board is made up of the mayor or designee approved by the city council to the design review is made, and it said, just repeats it. I don't understand what this this second provision A is. So that's in that 4.3, the second part of the second A section. And then in C, that is where it says Design Review Board, where I think it ought to be consistent, call it the Downtown Grants Design Review Board. So it's the only thing that I would add there, just to make it so there's no question, but I don't understand the second section A.
We'll go AA.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to be B since the next one is
Except
C.
for the fact that what the content of it doesn't make sense to me
Yeah.
either. So if we just know what that is, we could maybe make the change and get past it.
Okay.
Is it just supposed to be, is it supposed to say the design review, well, the Downtown Grants Design Review Board is made up of the mayor or designee approved by the city council? Is that all it's supposed to say? If that's the case, that would be easy.
Just a moment.
Okay.
It's supposed to say, which one? It's supposed to say something completely different. We don't know what happened to the document. It's supposed to say, the creation of a board to review a grant application. There is hereby created a downtown grant review board which shall consist of 3 members selected as follows. Number 1, the mayor or designee approved by city council. Number 2, council member appointed by city council to serve as council liaison to the Odessa Development Corporation Compliance Committee. 3, ODC board member selected by ODC board.
I have a question here, because I know at the last city council, it was brought up that there's and it seemed like the council in general was supportive of it, to remove city council members from other boards and positions and all. I know like they serve on animal advisory, and there were some conflict things that came up related, or questions came up to that. And it seemed like to me the council was pretty much in agreement that they did not want to see the mayor or the city council serving on other committees. So if we move forward with this seems to be in conflict with what council has expressed a desire to do, that they don't want the mayor or city council members to be on other boards or commissions.
If
If I may, Mr. Well, I'm simply going to agree with Mr. Russell. That was pointed out. As a matter of fact, there is another item on your agenda at which this was the topic of discussion with the Downtown Odessa Board, and that was to remove that component, if you will, at the council's request, and redefine what that committee looks like. I can certainly talk about that now, or I can wait, but I would agree with Mr. Russell. That would be in conflict with what the council's wishes were.
Okay, so what the council's talking about, or what they voted on?
They did not vote on it. They simply asked that we revisit that portion of the agreement, or process rather. It wasn't so much related to the contract, but rather the process. By default is going to be related to the bylaws rather.
Can we vote for these, with this section here to be changed to be concurrent with the council when they get through, and just eliminate this part for right now so we get through this? Is everyone comfortable with that?
I am.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Just a quick question. So, 2.2, is that the same
that what you understand?
He could be ex officio. They were trying to keep him out of voting,
Okay.
from what I understand.
And then
Since
we're
we're
talking
open,
about 2.2
open
numbers.
meetings, I mean, any of them can come anytime. You know, it's like Councilman Sprouls is here now.
Okay. Okay, let's move on past that. Is any other,
I had a couple. Shocker, I know. So the 2.7 Open Meetings Act, I still would like to see all meetings and deliberations of the board and compliance committee shall be called, convened, held, and conducted, and notice shall be given to the public in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551.
Compliance committee
we're
is
not gonna
subject
change
to
that,
open
okay,
meetings.
right now,
Act.
we're in the bid, we had gotten back, we're researching that at this time, so we're,
Let me refer you to one item. If you come on down into,
What page are you on?
I'm on page
4 of 12.
91 of 100 is where I'm going right now. So I'm going way down where, I think, I don't remember if this is still part of our bylaws or not, but 9.7 says confidentiality. Part of the information and material obtained by the Economic Development Department and Compliance Committee and the ODC may be considered confidential and proprietary by an applicant, but be subject to the Open Records Act. Which, first of all, I've never heard of an Open Records Act. There's an Open Meetings Act, but,
There's an Open Records Act.
Yeah.
okay, cool.
You're talking, TPI?
TPI is what I was thinking.
Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Okay, I've just never heard of it.
We might wanna clean that up there and reference it as the Texas Public Information.
It's referenced as the Open Records Act in a lot of the Attorney General's publications about it. It's
Potato,
not a
potato.
problem.
Whichever. I just mean that we specifically say to a customer who's doing an application, you know, we understand some part of your material is gonna be proprietary and confidential, but it's still gonna be subject to the Open Meetings Act.
May be subject.
There you go. And so, and even still, I understand that we're using compliance committee, and if, I'm assuming you guys agree to negotiate contracts and the whole 9 yards back and forth, and it comes to us for approval. But when it comes to us for approval, that can always be discussed in executive session.
They
That's
don't
what that
negotiate
item
the
for executive
contract.
session.
Yeah,
They don't
let me address that. Chris, let's be real clear. The compliance committee basically comes to the board and says, this grant complies with all the regulations, our matrix, fits in our matrix in this fashion, but they don't negotiate anything. And that's really important. The whole, to me, the value, other than the fact that you have a lot of professionals who are skilled in evaluating whether this deal is gonna be feasible or not, you also have the ability to have a grant applicant provide information that they know is not going to be public information unless there's a relatively good chance that they're going to be considered favorably for a grant. You know, and again, the content of that information is really important. It puts us on the same level playing field with other like communities when we're competing for those grant applicants. And so I think the important thing here is to ensure that the compliance committee continues to function as an advisory committee to us with regard to this grant application complies with your regs, it complies, it fits into the matrix in this fashion, and that they qualify for these dollars. We make the decision whether to do it or not, and exactly how we do it. So that's really important, I think. I don't want to. I guess I don't want to leave here without conveying that I feel like the compliance committee is extremely valuable to us in that regard. If we need to take additional time to scrutinize these deals once the compliance committee's through with their work, then let's do that. And if we need to do that in executive session, then let's do that. But I think if we tinker in such a way with the compliance committee that now it doesn't have the value that it does today, then I think we got a problem.
I see your concern, and I validate everything you say. I agree with all of that wholeheartedly, okay? I'm just afraid, I'm trying to protect us and the city, and that I still think that we're, in seeing a lot of the deals from the past, I think we're really walking a thin line there. And I don't think you can argue with transparency is always better. Do you see what I'm saying? So, and I'll just leave it at that right there, and that's cool, and I appreciate your explanation.
Okay.
I think that was spot on, and I agree with you. I think compliance committee is a huge benefit, and you're right, they're made up of great professionals, they have a lot of deeper understanding in so many topics that this board doesn't have. That's cool. We're just walking a thin line when it comes to.
And
I don't know.
and I don't
that
think we
agree
are.
with the thin line.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I've done some additional
Excuse me a
research.
second, we're in the process of doing the research that you asked about last time. We're not
Great
complete,
point,
we'll
Sam.
have it done by the next meeting, and we'll have that discussion at that time.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we can move on.
Absolutely, thank you. It seemed like I had one more question. You know, I'm looking for my highlights, guys, sorry.
Would it be possible just to have Jan walk us real quickly through the substantive changes? I mean, I'm looking at a document that's got 2 or 3 sets of red lines in it, and I wanna make sure I understand what we're.
I think that makes sense.
Mhm.
Of the changes that were turned in,
It's just changes, period.
What's in our board packet, I think is what he's asking for, the changes that are reflected in our board packet.
frankly, I didn't go over your changes for the,
Did what's done prior work, the prior work?
Can we then just walk through them real quick?
Sure.
I think we can do this. I mean, I'll take the first run at the first one. So 2.2, we're expanding from 5 to 7, and we're basically striking, the ex officio stuff, correct?
okay.
And then we've got some
But wait, aren't we making that, contingent on what the council does? So we're not making that right now?
No, that was further down. That one
Okay.
would be changed to
Okay.
get rid of the ex officios. And then the next change I see is, a little bit of cleanup in the language. Each council member will nominate one person for director subject to board council approval.
Yep.
Correct, and D, we've got to change, and this was one that because this was one of my changes, I wanna make sure, it was talking about vacation of a seat, the way it was originally, worded, that would go back to city council at large. I wanted to see some language in there, upon vacation of any director, the city council member whose appointment was vacated would do the nomination subject to approval by city council, so it would go back to them
Yeah.
Mhm.
to refill their.
And I think they've got us aligned with a council person as we speak now.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
I agree with that.
Okay. Did we had a proposed change by Ms. Holman on,
Looks like it was deleted. And it says, I see no need for this requirement.
yeah, that was my red line to the red line, I guess, that was my comment back to Jan.
Okay, I apologize, I didn't go through these. Christine, you wanna speak up? I mean, Christina put these all together, and I didn't look at them because this is your show. It's for y'all to discuss, so I did not jump in and get involved. It's none of my business.
Okay, so what we have here is not really a complete red line.
Okay.
It is, it's just the way it was printed, I wanna say, in what, how much was shown. What was deleted is the one that said that they, have served, or they have served on compliance committee. And Ms. Holman, you had said you wanted it to say and then Mr. Russell had said he didn't see that as being necessary at all. But originally the wording was or, the last qualification
But it
has
had, or has served on the compliance
yes.
committee.
So we can leave it at or has served, or it can be deleted entirely. But the two of you just had different, comments on that.
Well, I mean, I don't agree that it usurps the authority of the city council, but I'm just one person.
Well, I was referring to the word and. I mean, if they come from compliance, fine, but a requirement that they come from compliance, which would be the and portion of it, you know, that kind of sets up almost a circular deal, because city council nominates ODC, ODC members do compliance. The next time through the chute, with the and in there, the only people that city council could possibly put on ODC would be those members that have served on compliance. And so it limits their pool of potential candidates that they may want to
It
put
does
on.
limit their pool, that's correct, but
Yeah.
it's a pretty big pool.
But,
And it's a pool of people who have economic development experience.
yeah. To me, that seems like, you know, kind of the tail wagging the dog. I mean, ultimately, we're here to serve the city council serves the voters.
Yeah,
I'm
but we
afraid
have
that
the
if we set up with an
qualifications in
and,
there.
then we're really changing that whole dynamic, and we're tying city council's hands.
I think it goes to your point earlier, Melanie, you know, our compliance committee has great assets, a lot of assets that this board doesn't have. But if you limit it only to compliance committee members that come to the board, you could also be limiting council. There could be other people out there that have assets that aren't even available on our current compliance committee or past compliance committee members. I mean, they could pull somebody from another industry or anything else. They could be great to serve on ODC board. So I like the or, I really do. I think that's fabulous. I don't like the and. I think you're tying city council's hands. But I think the or, to point out that, you know, they should certainly probably give favorable consideration to people that are on compliance committee, absolutely.
I could support that. I think we need a reference in there to the compliance committee. I mean, I think it adds value. And so if you have to make it or, I could
So we just
support
go
that.
back to the
Our
original
existing
language,
bylaws
I think.
have the or in the reference
Yeah.
to the compliance committee. It would just take it back to what it was.
Okay, we need to have it that way. But we skipped G.
No, wait, have y'all decided on this?
Well, we'll vote at the end.
Okay.
But we would like to take, I think
Because
the
this-
consensus is to go
This
back.
isn't legal, so, am I supposed to be doing something?
Taking notes.
So on the note.
Only if you're gonna be the one making changes.
What is happening?
I'm
I
not.
don't know.
Who's gonna be the one making changes?
Christina.
Okay, so.
But-
Taking notes.
Because I didn't want to miss anything, but.
So Christine, we're taking that to or?
Yes,
We
I'm
would like to
basically
take
just putting it
Okay.
back to how
Yeah,
it
to
was
the
as
original.
Okay,
or.
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Now we go G.
Yeah, go back up to G. What was deleted?
It was another reference, it was kind of duplicate of what was in 2.2, as far as the mayor having
Okay,
a non-voting.
okay, I'm good with that. 2.6. It says this item was added following the language of city council meetings. We're just matching up. I didn't see any issues there.
And then we moved, I guess we moved all the.
Oh, yeah.
headings down to
Yeah,
a
yeah.
separate section.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, saw that. Then we're changing the, from 10 compliance committee members to not less than 10, not more than 12. And it would allow 3 ODC board members
We can't.
without
have
having,
any-
without
Ex
having
officio?
without having a quorum.
Do they
Yeah.
still wanna have in there though, that one council member selected by city council?
Not here, I don't think we ever had.
One council member selected by the city council.
Yeah, do we wanna wanna still keep that in there, or does that go contrary to what we were talking about earlier of council wanting to get off all these boards?
That's a good point.
Where'd my,
Did they want to eliminate ex officio, or are they not wanting to be voting members?
From what I understand,
What was
it's
the clear?
all, but
I think, that's what I understood all, I mean, again, since it's Open Meetings Act, any of them can come, all of them can come.
well, not the compliance
Not
committee.
compliance.
Oh, not the compliance, I'm sorry.
Maybe we leave that one.
You think if they wanted it out of all of them,
that's what Michael was saying.
then we would need to remove it in this one too.
Okay, let's remove that one and keep going.
I'm good with that.
Okay, what's the next one?
This is what we were just talking about, the Downtown Grants
Right.
Design Review Board. Let's just make sure that every time that you refer to that, that it uses exactly the same terminology. And then we just need to figure out, or did we figure out what was, the second A?
The way it was originally set up was to have one council member, the council member that is already on as liaison to the compliance, and then one ODC. That's the way it was originally set up years ago.
Okay, this is,
And we're
this,
talking about downtown grants.
yeah, this,
Yes,
Okay,
yes. And, as Michael had mentioned, there's, number 8 on your agenda actually discusses the guidelines for that. So we can go through all of that.
okay, so at least for our purposes, so we can move forward, if we eliminate this, second A, does that, I mean, at least for now, I mean, we could also come back and amend it if we wanted to, but is there any reason for us not to remove it?
Jan, what was the language you read that you said it's completely different? Would you mind, I'm sorry, would you mind reading it again?
Not a problem.
And this is supposed to be, is this supposed to be B?
Yes.
Okay.
It says, so it's actually the A on there?
Where it says what it's made up of.
Okay.
Yes.
The creation of, it's A, creation of board to review grant applications. There is thereby created a downtown grants design review board, which shall consist of 3 members selected as follows. 1, mayor or designee approved by city council. 2, council member appointed by city council to serve as council liaison to the Odessa Development Corporation Compliance Committee. 3, ODC board member selected by ODC board.
Okay, and so that's what we're removing. And so there will only be an A and a B rather than 2 A's and a C.
There will still be a B, it'll reflect whatever the council decides on. This is a council document,
Okay.
so you'll be recommending to the council what that should be made of. And like I said, in item, 8.
So we'll be doing this again after we know what the council decision is.
Yeah, I can add
So we'll get
that
to
B.
review this again.
Yes,
Okay.
So if I could make a suggestion there that we may be able to go ahead and put some language in there and see if this is what council wants. If we could leave it with 1 ODC board member, 1 member appointed by the mayor, and 1 member appointed by city council. That would take the actual council members off, but it would kind of keep that same, that same structure there that we have. We would just not have them be the mayor or a city council member, but they would be appointed by the mayor and by the city council. Is that,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with
I don't
that.
have a problem with that at all.
sounds good.
You probably have a better crystal ball than I do about what council's gonna want.
go about that?
I don't show any more changes for a couple of pages here.
Well, yeah, there's, let's see. The applicable law, let's see, it's in the Development Finance Program and Administrative Policy. And it basically, I think it's referencing a section of the law, looks like to me.
1.2?
Yep,
So it looks like 1.2 and 2.4, those were just kind of clean up to get it.
Yeah, it looks like that goes back to the 4A tax guidelines, yeah.
There's a typo. I think it's supposed to say primarily job training facilities. At the end.
where do you see? Let me see.
Oh, yeah,
here?
I think it's just supposed
I
to
think
say,
it's supposed to be primarily, if I were guessing.
Primary jobs from dispensary facilities.
Make
it really big.
Right here.
Okay.
No, 'cause
Oh, I see, primary slash
jobs-
Y.
Primary jobs is a defined term.
But yes,
look at
but
it
this
now, look
is
at the-
primary job training facility. I think it's supposed to be primarily job training facilities. Maybe, I don't know.
I think it's supposed to just be.
I think it's supposed to be
primary.
primary job
Primary
training
job.
Well,
facilities.
what,
So primary slash Y, job training facility.
Yeah, because down in 2.4, it shows those jobs are restricted to quote-unquote primary jobs.
primary
So I
jobs.
think it's probably
Maybe
referencing
it's
that.
primary.
That's fine. That is a typo though. I don't think there's anything other changes. Whoops,
If
whoop,
primary
they are.
jobs is a defined term, then we need to capitalize it throughout,
Okay,
because it'll be defined.
This is taken from, this was taken from the statute. For whatever reason, it wasn't capitalized in the statute.
But is it a defined term in this?
If it's a
Document.
defined term in our document, then I'd like it to be capitalized
Capitalized.
so that we know we're referring to the defined term.
and we can,
That's,
and we can be better than the statute.
that's my
Amen.
contract.
I would suggest one other change to the bylaws, section 5.2, annual corporate budget. It's been left at least 60 days prior to the commencement of each fiscal year. The board shall adopt a proposed budget. That probably won't happen within 60 days, so we might consider changing this to 30 days. We extended that time period for the contractors to turn stuff in, so we'd need to change this
Okay,
as well.
good with that.
The rest of it was just formatting and then those
Mhm.
things that we talked about last time about the number of bids that they must have and the official business plan. Jeff, those were the things you talked about, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. There's one other thing, I think, I know Larry and I talked, because I know it came up in the last facade grant stuff that we did. Could we amend that to, and this is down in, 11.4, which is the downtown grant stuff, and this will be in C. Two, we added applicant must receive 2 or more bids for the proposed work to be performed. And we were also wanting to maybe think about adding there that those bids would be submitted as a part of their package to ODC. So if ODC members wanna take a look at those in a little more detail, they have that info there.
I think it's fair.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't necessarily wanna pursue the requiring certain classes?
Yeah, we've got that down in, it's down in, paragraph 12. If applicant is a new business, they must submit a business plan with their application package. Did you wanna go beyond that? I kinda forgot about the classes.
We talked about it at the last meeting, and I thought that might be valuable.
I think it would be a
I
good
agree.
idea to include it. I mean, I kinda
Mhm.
forgot about it. but-
I agree.
Do
Yeah,
too.
you were talking about, looking into what classes you would suggest we require.
Yeah, I think we ought to, I mean, I guess we could put some language in here that if they're a new business, they submit a business plan and they go through a prescribed program developed by the SBDC, and we just work with those guys
Yeah.
if they know.
We need to make a decision about what constitutes a new business. I mean,
Yes.
have they been in operations for how long? Cause
Well-
we need to be clear about that.
Well, I think you certainly need to be clear about it, because you have existing businessmen that are just opening up new businesses. I don't think it's fair that they would have to go through those type of classes at that point.
I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on how we define that? I agree with you. I
Chris
think
brought up something I wasn't thinking about too. So maybe, we say the principals in the business have to have a certain amount of business experience to be exempted from the SBDC coursework.
I think that would work too, and as far as new businesses, I mean, do we say any business that has not been in operation for more than 18 months, or we put some?
David, what's the point in time that most new businesses fail if they're gonna fail?
Well, I would say 3 years,
3 years.
because you typically are looking for 3 years financials, so.
Okay.
So 3 years, and then we say, however, if, what, 1, 2 principals of the business have more than 3 years business experience in other ventures?
Let's do it in 2 pieces if we could. Let's do the business plan if you've been in business for less than 3 years. Because that's gonna give us that, instead of saying a new business, if you've been in business for less than 3 years, you gotta submit a business plan. And then we could, as a separate topic, define business experience of the principals in such a way that if you don't have that level of experience, then you have to go through some program defined by the SBDC. That,
And you could actually say principal or principals that represent controlling interest in the business or
Yeah,
something
there you
like
go.
that.
Jeff, if I can be helpful with language, feel free to shoot it back and forth with me and we can
yeah, I'll
make
do
it
that. Why don't
pretty.
we do that between, now and next time, we'll just kind of work on that language for that section.
This is nitpicky, and I admit it. It says wherever it says if an applicant is a new business, they must, it should say it must, because it's, a business is not a they. That is picky. I admit it.
But he's not wrong.
Clean it up.
What I need the motion?
If they're through making changes,
I mean, with the things we're talking about changing, are we gonna be ready to approve this today?
Not if you're gonna.
I don't think so. I think
So
we
we
need to
don't have to
bring
get
it back.
Yeah, I think bring it back.
Let's bring
Okay.
it back.
Great.
The other thing that we added under that was under facade B, and I think we have it in both places, or we should have, where they have to submit at least 2 bids for those work. That would be down in facade, which is paragraph B, 3B.
Mm-hmm.
So we added that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we added it to both places.
Submit
to
and
both-
provide.
Yeah, so we added that to both the facade and the infrastructure grants
Yep.
require at least 2 bids.
I'm good with that.
so we'll note that we'll table it. We need a motion to table it.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Could you get the, language to us beforehand?
You
Well,
should have
yeah,
it right down,
Can
don't you?
y'all send us something to work off
Oh.
of that's,
Do you want just this document in Word?
yeah, but I don't want this one. I want the version that has some of the stuff in it that was,
If you could send us a clean version with the changes and also a red line version so that we can see the changes, does that make sense?
So what I have is the original version, which was passed by
Okay.
the council.
send the
and then just
original and then
here.
this one, please.
So you want both of them?
Yes.
I can do that. Just to you or?
Just to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ms. Holman and-
If they agree on it, I'll pass it. I'll get it passed.
Pardon me?
They agree on it, I'll get it passed. We can get to that point. Okay, so all in favor of tabling it, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign, passes. Okay, the next thing on is approve revision to the Development Finance Program Administrative Policy.
I think we just talked, wasn't that what we were
I think we just did.
Is that what we just did?
talking
Yeah,
through?
that's
Okay,
part of what.
consider revisions to guidelines governing downtown infrastructure.
Yeah.
All of that's been tabled, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so we've got that changed as well, and that's what Jeff was, okay, gotcha. Okay.
We actually have some recommendations from the downtown board that we
Okay.
want to discuss. So, on Tuesday at our
You're
meeting.
Alexa?
Yes, I'm
That's
Alexa.
right.
That's
Okay.
okay.
our board of directors had some input that they wanted to bring to your attention to possibly put into the grant program. So the 3 items, most of which you guys have talked about while you were talking about your bylaw, so some of it may be a little bit repetitive. But one solution that we came up to the Downtown Review Board is to kind of find a way to fix some of the redundancy. Everyone that's on the current Downtown Review Board votes on it at another time, whereas our board actually has no say and never even sees the applications. They're not part of the process, which we feel like they need to be as the Downtown Odessa Board of Directors. So we have a recommendation to potentially make it so that the Downtown Review Board would be made up of 2 board members from the downtown board as well as a downtown staff member, with the provision that each meeting has to have at least 2 people in attendance.
So where do the applications go now?
They're submitted to the Downtown Odessa staff, who then submits it to applicable city staff for review, legal and building inspection if it's infrastructure. And then from there, it goes to the Downtown Review Committee. Once it's approved by the review committee, it goes to ODC. And then once you guys approve it, it goes to city council.
The Downtown Review Board doesn't review anything?
No, the Downtown Board of Directors don't review anything.
You're talking about Downtown Odessa Inc.? Is that, okay.
Yes, sir.
So you just want to add 2 of them, Odessa Inc. to the review board, is what that's saying?
Well, replacing. So instead of having it be all members that are going to vote on it at another time, which might create some kind of conflict and kind of resolve what city council is trying to do is take themselves off as voting members, just replace the Downtown Review Board with Downtown Odessa Inc. board members. So it'll be made up of 2 nominated board members and a Downtown Odessa Inc. staff member. And that would also give us the ability to kind of call these meetings more nimbly and as needed, just because most of our board of directors live and or work in downtown, so they're easily accessible to us at even just a moment's notice.
So you're proposing a 4-member board?
3 members.
3 members.
So 2 of our board of directors and then 1 staff member from downtown.
So that would take the ODC member off as well, right?
Yes, but ODC votes on it at the next step, so it's just making Downtown Odessa Inc. the first step, ODC the second step, then City Council being the ultimate vote.
So Jeff, that will remove you off of it, and is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
But if we can sure up this document so that it gets everything, the bylaws, it gets everything we like to see, is that okay? Or do you think that ODC needs to be involved?
I mean, I'm okay with it either way, as long as when they present enough information so that we understand what's
Yeah,
going on.
I wondered about that too. Will we still feel as confident that we have all the information if
Well-
there's not a board member?
Well, to that point, when the most recent, items came in, my comfort was the fact that Jeff had participated in the conversation, so.
And in the past, it was Jean. I mean, we've always had
Yeah.
somebody who was able to report to us.
I mean, do you think, Alexa, that maybe the way to do this is we take 1 Downtown Odessa Inc., we take 1 ODC member, and then we take, kinda like we talked about where the mayor appoints a member, the city council appoints a member, so we end up with a 4-member board? I mean, would that satisfy, you think, what you guys are trying to, what Downtown Odessa Inc.'s trying to get to?
I would recommend an odd number of
Yeah.
board, we don't want it
They also recommended a staff person.
Okay, and a staff person, so that would be a 5-member.
Is that unusual for a staff, to
Yeah.
have a voting
So staff,
seat on a board?
staff typically in this case would not vote, but rather be there for support and provide guidance. I think Mr. Russell's suggestion, I think the important factor here for the council is that they wanted to kind of take themselves out of that because they would see it down the line, it would expedite the process. And that's really where I think this came from, is if we look at the last set of grants that you approved and the council approved, it was difficult to get people together. It was difficult to get it based on timing with everyone's agendas. So we just wanted, I think the council wanted a way to expedite that process. So our recommendation, the board's recommendation was that, but I don't see why Mr. Russell's suggestion would not work, and that is to have a member if he still wishes to be on the board, and that gives this group a better comfort level. That's certainly not a problem. It could be Mr. Russell and 2 members of the board.
2 members of her board.
Yes, correct.
That's what I was saying. Then you have more
Yeah.
board involvement.
And you've got an odd number, so you don't get
Yeah.
deadlocked.
Okay.
The next thing that our board discussed was, as you guys were talking about with the educational component, a lot of them are longstanding downtown business owners or business owners that are just getting started. One of them is actually one of the owners of a building that you guys just approved a grant for. So our board is very diverse and have a lot of hands-on experience with the grant program, and therefore have a lot of thoughts about it. And one that, when we were talking about the education component, they think that a great way to kind of define and show knowledge and worthiness for this is to submit the business plan like you guys are talking about, and have that be the main component. And if it's judged either at the staff level before going to legal, and then also confirmed at the review board level that their business plan isn't sufficient, doesn't suffice, shows a lack of knowledge, to then recommend taking some kind of courses but not making it a requirement, and giving preference to those who resubmit after taking courses, but not recommending it.
I don't think that we were saying we wouldn't grant an application until courses were taken. But since we pay in arrears, that completion of courses would be a requirement to fulfill.
To get funding.
Yeah, we weren't gonna hold up the grant over it.
Right.
The grant would still be made, but we pay after the expenses are incurred, so they'd have the time period of construction to work with the SBDC to obtain the, is that the concern, is that they didn't want the time, they didn't want people to have to wait?
No, I think that a lot of their concern came from the fact that while this last round, one of those businesses was a completely new business, a lot of them are already experienced business people, and a lot of people may not necessarily read all the way into the process, but if they see so many steps and hindrances and things that they feel like, aren't applicable to them, it might be a hindrance in applying for the program, which is, not the direction we're looking to go. We're trying to make the process, as expedient and transparent, but well, judged as possible. So they just didn't want it to seem like it would be too much of a hindrance to business owners, especially those that aren't new, that already have the background in business.
And that's what we were talking about, carving those out. If you have a certain level of business, whether it's this business or any other business, but you have a certain level of demonstrable business experience, and you wouldn't be required to go. But what we're trying to, I think I think our thoughts are at, if you're a brand spanking new, I've never been in business before, but I'm going to open a XYZ shop, to make sure that they have that business training, that they're going to need to set them up for success. Because we have had a few of those downtown, over the years that I know of that, kind of came in, rolled in, no business experience, and they weren't very successful.
I agree with Jeff. I think our exclusion for experienced business principals eliminates some of your concern. And while I don't want our requirements to create a chilling effect on getting applications for grants, my priority really as, steward of these tax funds is to make sure that we put them into businesses that have the best tools to succeed, so that we don't end up with an empty downtown building with a fabulous
Facade.
Right. And I think all of our directors agree with that as well. They just think that you'll definitely be able to see their education base and their experience through a business plan. You'll be able to tell rather quickly whether someone is, has enough skill in business based on what they present to you in their business plan.
I'm gonna agree
I
with
think
Melanie
somebody could go to SBDC
and get a fabulous
and
business
get
plan.
help with writing a business plan
Absolutely.
without getting any kind of education or background that goes with it. They have a fantastic plan that SBDC has helped them to prepare, but they don't have as much of the substance behind it. We're not trying to handcuff anybody or create a problem. We want these businesses to succeed. We want them to have every possible opportunity at success.
Sure.
In addition, you take a guy that, you know, he may have 20 years experience, you know, running a trucking company. But running a trucking company is totally different than opening a restaurant in downtown Odessa. I mean, totally different business skills involved. I mean, running one business is one thing. I mean, there's still difference that I think the SBDC could bring tons of value to.
And we're not asking them to spend money.
No, I'm fully behind you, Melanie. I still think the requirement should stand. And I see your point, though. You know, should they be evaluated? You know, once they submit their business plan, but you bring up a valid point. I mean, my 21-year-old daughter can write a business plan, knock your socks off, but doesn't mean she can run a business.
I don't think we want to make it too uninviting or like a SBA, you know,
Yeah.
application for a loan. Or we want to get some basic feel for the people and see if we think they can do it, whatever the method is. Maybe even somebody, an academic interviewing them, or, you know, and giving us their response.
Well, I don't think we're talking about requiring them to complete a bachelor's degree. I mean,
It's a few hours.
Yeah, I think we just don't want to provide grant funds.
Keep it user-friendly.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want to provide grant funds for somebody that has no experience and no training. That's just what we don't want to do. And I think that's what our, the document's gonna look like.
So could I make the suggestion that between me, Melanie, and you, before next meeting, we kind of get together, work on a little language, that would get us kind of all where we want to be?
Sure.
Great idea.
I'd second that, but I'd also go back to what everyone's saying, is that we do not want to make this too onerous. And at the end of the day, this is about downtown beautification. And so I don't think we get too stuck up on how successful the business will be in 3 years, because we never know. But at the end of the day, they're going to be putting money into making buildings downtown look better, right? And whether or not the business there is one issue, but the building itself probably will still be there, and it will look better than what it was prior to them coming. So I do think that there's some happy mediums that but I am definitely for a little bit of everything everybody's saying. Do not make this SBA.
We want to keep it kind of simple, straightforward, but lay out some parameters of what we're looking for.
For me, beautiful buildings are great. That's wonderful, and that's great. That's not what ODC's tasked with. In the end, it's more what Melanie's talking about, which is having a viable business that creates capital investment in our city and creates jobs.
Well, I think they're two different deals. I think you're talking about infrastructure and beautification, and we're talking about ODC, and what we're doing is trying to create job creations and so forth. So I think you're talking about two separate pools of buckets. And so I think the scrutiny can be different in each.
I think is it worthwhile to ask what, I mean, if there are 3 seminars somebody could take from the SBDC that would greatly enhance, what is the minimum number of seminars that would really enhance success?
Well, I mean, I think it greatly depends on the person, but I would think 3 is a good number. I think cash flow management would be critical. That would be a very good one. Something on financial projections would be very good. And then a human resources type class would be good as well.
Can I tell you what I see?
Sure,
People come in,
please do.
The biggest, worst mistake that I see business principals make, and then they come and we have to try to help them fix it,
Right.
is they get freaked out with their cash flow.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't remit their payroll taxes.
Yes, absolutely.
And then they end up
Yeah.
in a mess.
Yeah, a huge mess.
I think that we gotta be careful. I'm gonna use myself as an example. I started a business, never owned a business, started a business 10 years ago. And both businesses are still running. So I would fall in the category of never owning a business. And the moment that I was seeing all of this stuff we were talking about, I probably would have left and went somewhere else, and we would never have a downtown. So I think that there's a fine line.
So you have, but you run those businesses.
As I said, you gotta make the application where it states that, and now you're getting really, really worried in what you're doing. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We need to find a way to keep it simple. I think there's some
Yeah.
merit in a lot of it, but
Yeah.
I will just be honest with you, tell you that, I mean, now you're talking about you're gonna give me a paper that says I gotta meet all these qualifications first. At that point, I'm going somewhere doing something else.
Yeah.
That's all.
And there's no way to take a broad brush and say this is what a new business owner, whether it's downtown or anywhere else, you know, what their background is or because it just depends. When we get all kinds. We get people who are very prepared to start and run a business, and we get people who, yeah, they're just not. So I'll just leave it at that.
So those three classes just.
And that's just off the top of my head.
Okay, good thought though. So cash flow, HR, and financial projection.
Mhm.
How long would it take somebody in terms of hours
Well,
to do?
our workshops are usually an hour long, and that would be 3 separate workshops, so that's what you'd be talking about.
So three hours.
Yeah. Over the course of, you know, we might do one a month on that particular subject matter or something like that.
But I think it's up to us to figure out how to write this so that it doesn't look like an IRS document or an SBA document.
I'd like to sit through all three of those classes myself.
Alexa, I think you have some help coming.
Well, it's all welcome, you know, the varying opinions. And then our third point is exactly what you guys iterated during your discussion of the bylaws. The code or the board does want to see the codification of submitting 2 bids with every application, both infrastructure and facade. They agree with that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for her?
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Okay, we're down to committee reports now. Partnership still hasn't cranked back up again. Tax incentive, I don't think y'all met.
Nope.
Advertising, we gave our last report for the meeting. Jeff, we had a good meeting with Craig. We haven't met since. And then downtown grants design review board, Jeff, y'all.
Been nothing new on that.
Okay. All right. I think we're through that. Any other things to discuss? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion? Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.